All right, Luther Burden the third, Missouri. A lot of the debate with Burden is the usage pattern and so much of the short game and everything. So you're trying to search the film for seeing everything that you want him to do at the next level. What are your thoughts on Luther Burden? He's our wide receiver 3 for both of us.
Yeah, the first one, I think, where it gets difficult because there's a lot more projection involved. I love the physical traits, and somebody asked me yesterday on Twitter, like, what did we learn from, or what did I learn in particular from Brian Thomas Jr. last year? Obviously, Brian Thomas, I was way lower on him than pretty much anybody else. And right now, if I was redrafting last year's wide receiver group, I think I would take him first, like above Malik Neighbors, above anybody else. I think he looks like the most special receiver of that group. So what do you learn from that? There's always a danger of overcorrecting, right? Well, based off that, let's completely swing and
don't overcorrect. Don't overcorrect.
Right. But what it does is make you think more closely about the guys that have incredible physical traits, and their usage pattern in college was not what you would want it to be, right? Now, the problem is that leads you down the line of being like, let's draft Corey Coleman in the top 5 because he's special and the offense stinks. And, it doesn't always mean that those guys are going to be able to do it once you ask them to. But Luther Burden is that guy for me this year. Now, look, he's not as physically special as Brian Thomas Jr. Like, the numbers don't match. He's not the same size. He's 5'11", 208. He's a very different body shape. He didn't run a 4.3 flat. All these different, like, it's not the same, right? It's not apples to apples. But he's shifty. He's an elite change of direction guy. The ball in his hands, he becomes special. We talked about it before. He reminded me of prime Odell Beckham Jr. with the ball in his hands, like that ability to make people miss and break tackles. He had 30 broken tackles last year. This is like the down year for him, 30 of them and 65 in 3 seasons. He is an absolute menace with the ball in his hands. There was some awful quarterback play as well. And I know I'm saying that as a guy who had Brady Cook as like a sleeper that I'd be intrigued by, but like there was some rough quarterback play in there.
Yeah.
But it's a fake route tree. There's a lot of like Traylon Burks to that as well in terms of they're just manufacturing touches for him. It's really hard to project. Like, what happens if we take this guy out of the Missouri offense and I drop him into like a random NFL offense tomorrow? Like, does he immediately look twice as good because he's running real routes? It's a different role, and he's actually being a real NFL wide receiver. Or is that going to be a struggle getting him used to that? That's the big question with him.
Yeah, his movement is incredible. You mentioned 32 missed tackles forced. He had 10 against Boston College alone. And it wasn't just all screens. I mean, we're talking, little quick outs and everything where he's making the first guy miss. I love his movement in and out. Again, I was telling you off air, I was writing notes. I have notes for him for last year and this year, and it's like the same exact thing. It's the shiftiness, it's his acceleration. Love the body control down the field. So you didn't get a ton of the downfield throws, but you could see him adjusting to back shoulders. You could see him tracking the ball pretty well. I think he's very good at a lot of things. And then his special trait is the shiftiness, and that shows up in route running and it shows up after the catch.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now. So click that button and then we can get back to whatever it is Steve's telling you about.
So I think you could do a lot with Burden. Again, I feel like we need to preface all of this. Is he an X? Is he the guy that you just, go beat one-on-one all the time and be the high volume best receiver, top 10 receiver in the NFL? Probably not. I don't think we need to say that for the next 15, 20 receivers we're going to talk about. But man, I think you could do a lot with Luther Burden. Now, OBJ, when he was at his best, I would say OBJ was that dude, right? He was the true number one,
Sure.
One down the field, ran routes at every level, and by the way, was outstanding after the catch. I don't think Burden's going to be that guy, but like a lesser version of that where he'll win a little bit down the field, can get in and out of breaks extremely well. And then I would not like full manufactured touches, but just the short game. I think you give him short passes, he'll make something happen with it. Give him 4 or 5 yard passes, he'll do something after the catch. So I think there's a lot of value in what Burden brings to the table.
And there's an unusual volume of players in this draft, or at least it feels like it to me, for whom the most recent tape is not the tape that is the most instructive. Like if you go back to 2023, Luther Burden is a top 10 draft pick. Like people were saying that at the time. It was him and McMillan seen as like vying for wide receiver 1 at the top of this draft, and both of them could be top 10 picks. And then Burden had a rough year last season. I don't think his play was dramatically different, but you saw like a much better use of him and a much better production because of it the year before. So, you know, again, I don't know quite what you do with that. As a, like, generally speaking, you want to see the most recent tape being the most instructive, and that's true for a few other guys here. But for Burden, you know, if you go back to 2023, I think you can easily sell yourself on this guy being a top half of the first round draft pick. And I think, again, yeah, I have him written down as like a Z receiver, but I do question whether he has X potential, like whether you can actually put him outside. He's got enough size. He's got the quickness to defeat that kind of press physical coverage. He's got strength to do it as well. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, I think, that he can become, again, not OBJ, because that guy had, like, you know, an all-time start to his career, but, you know, can be OBJ in terms of a guy of that kind of size playing outside as your true number 1X.
Yeah, I mean, he does have all those skills, right? I mean, I think late hands down the field, body control that I mentioned, like he's got good wide receiver feel. And sometimes, you know, like when you are getting everything schemed up and everything, yeah, you don't see that as much. But his he had a 91 PFF receiving grade in 2023, one of the best receivers in the nation. So that's the year that you're citing, where if you go back and watch that, you see a lot more of what would project to an X receiver or the high end Z. So I like Burden. I like Burden quite a bit, and I think he brings just natural athleticism that some other receivers don't have in this class.
Yeah, and just like there are so much of his tape is like manufactured touches, fake offense, collegey stuff. There are some legit like X receiver snaps though. Like there's some plays there where he's doing that, and you know, press coverage on the outside, one-on-one. And he's got like an instant snap release. The cornerback's in deep trouble right away. So it's a really small sample size, and that's the problem. And it's not always against the best competition. So that's the other problem. But like there is at least evidence of him doing that. It's not a total projection to be like, well, you know, he's never played there before. Can he do this? This is like, okay, I see some snaps where he's doing this, where he's being a true X wide receiver and cooking people on the outside. Now, can we project that forward on a much bigger sample size? Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.